Hey everyone, Al Fragnoli, Zach Sooty, League of Leaders. We are joined tonight by a special guest, somebody who follows a lot of our stuff, Justin Marckel. Justin, thank you for coming on with us and being part of this Hot Topic Tuesday.
Happy to be here, guys. Thank you.
All right, we will start with the first question. We got two topics on the agenda that we want to hit on tonight. First one is going to be Pedro Gomez. Obviously, very sad news in the baseball world that came out yesterday. It's Pedro Gomez's sudden passing at the age of 58. So pretty young guy, working in the baseball world. He's been in the game for a long time. Very well respected with his journalism work that he does for baseball and ESPN. Justin, what are your thoughts about this? Maybe touch on did you like a lot of the work that Pedro Gomez brought to the table with his work in ESPN? And are there any other broadcasters or reporters out there, radio voices, that you believe have kind of impacted your sports journey and your passion for sports?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, just very tragic. The news comes like right in the middle of the Super Bowl. I was scrolling on Twitter and saw the ESPN PR announcement and just was taken aback for a minute. Pedro Gomez was young, like you said, Al. I was reading up a little bit about his career today. He spent some time. I think he got started with the A's, or spent some time with the A's when Canseco was there, Ricky Henderson, Mark McGuire, and but what I'll always remember him for. He must have been covering the Giants when Barry Bonds was there, and so anytime ESPN had a Sunday night game and the Giants were playing, I just always associated Pedro Gomez with covering Bonds and with the Giants, and so that's kind of will be the memory that sticks with me. And then just to kind of hit on your second point there, second question, you're talking a little bit before, but the announcer that I'll always remember is the great Ernie Harwell. He's a Detroit icon, announced the Tigers games for years. I mean, we would sit at the dinner table and Dad would turn on the radio and we'd listen to the Tigers game. Ernie Harwell and Jim Price on the call. And so these announcers, they definitely help shape our experiences and they help shape our memories. And I know Pedro Gomez is one that will be very missed.
Yeah, I agree with a lot with what you said right there, Justin. Pedro Gomez, especially in the Latin community, he was very well respected with his family coming over from Cuba, and him making a name for himself here in the States and in the baseball world. With so many Latin American players, I think they respected him tremendously, provided great content to his stuff. His son was just coming up through the baseball ranks, and I believe was a part of the Boston Red Sox minor league system. So just a tragic news yesterday from him. He was phenomenal. Another person I think about is Stuart Scott. I think his loss impacted me tremendously when he passed away several years ago at such an early age. He was a fantastic voice to hear on SportsCenter and on ESPN. And then Justin, you mentioned Ernie Harwell too. I think all Michiganders and all people in Metro Detroit love and respect Ernie Harwell for what he brought to the game of baseball. And it's things like that. I remember times going up north with my family, and I had as a kid a little Tigers baseball that was a radio, and there was something special about baseball where you listen to a game on the radio station and you can hear the crack of the bat, when you get a base hit, and it's something special about that game of baseball when it comes to radio and radio personalities and voices, and some of the best out there are able to make you feel like you're right there at the game. And I think Ernie Harwell did a great job with that. And again, with Pedro Gomez and what he brought to the game of baseball was so important, and it's going to be dearly missed for a long time to come. Zach, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think I learned of the death of Pedro Gomez similar to how you learned of it, Justin, scrolling on Twitter. And it's amazing that's how we get a lot of our current events anymore, which is just a huge change in our culture. But the culture of when I grew up watching baseball was Pedro Gomez and the home run derby. And he has one of those voices that you just know it's Pedro Gomez, and it almost kind of gives you goosebumps when he'd be doing the call, whether it was Sunday Night Baseball or Wednesday Night Baseball, and he just had one of those voices that you can just tie back to wonderful experiences or memories of Major League Baseball. And I just remember Home Run Derbies, him being on the field or talking to the players, and his relationships with players was so unique. It was just something that it was a different perspective, and he really, it looked like he cared about the players. And I think from what we've seen on Twitter and social media, he had relationships that were deep rooted with these players. Cole Tucker from the Pittsburgh Pirates, a young shortstop who just came up through the minor leagues, had a relationship. And, he mentioned how Pedro Gomez would want to FaceTime his family to talk to his family and talk about those relationships. He knew players, but he also knew their families. And I think that just talks about the integrity of the human being. And I think that kind of hit a little hard when you learned of his age. I don't know why, but I just thought he was so much older. To learn he was 58. I mean, I've watched him for so many years. To know that he could have and should have had, another 15 years in Major League Baseball as a broadcaster and a journalist. It's a shame, but he was one that will be missed, and I think very similar to Stuart Scott. Gone too early, and glad we have the memories, but wish we had more.
Yeah, spot on. I think you nailed it right there, Zach.
All right, so going on to a more lighter topic, we want to talk about your hero, right? Both of you, Tom Brady. I mean, we got two Tom Brady guys here. Michigan shirt on. You got the TB12. What are your thoughts on the Super Bowl? We'll start with Al. What are your thoughts on the Super Bowl? Is Tom Brady the greatest of all time? And what has turned a college QB that didn't become a starter until halfway through his senior year into the greatest NFL player of all time? And I think we can all remember his recruiting picture. Scrawny little Tom Brady. And then finally, what separates him from everybody else?
Yeah, Zach, we've touched on this the last couple of weeks throughout, our Hot Topic Tuesdays with NFL playoffs and everything that's going on. And, we sat here and I think NFC Championship, I believe we both were like, oh, okay, it's probably going to be the Green Bay Packers. And then leading up into Kansas City, yeah, it's probably going to be Kansas City, but pulling for Tom Brady. An absolute dominating performance, destroyed Kansas City. I don't think anybody expected that at all. He is hands down the greatest NFL player of all time. We can put that to bed. He is the GOAT. Okay. All right. It blows my mind to still have people that I know that I've had discussions with that have said, well, he didn't really play that well in the postseason. Well, he didn't do that well. That was a Tampa Bay defense that played great and fantastic. And they did. But guess what? That starts with strong leadership. So we'll talk about Tom Brady leadership traits and leadership qualities. He had that team inspired and ready to play. So yes, the defense played well, but some of that has to do with the leadership on that team. And that starts with the quarterback. That starts with Tom Brady, the greatest player of all time, hands down. I'm going to say that a couple times just to make sure everybody understands that. All right. So let's put that to bed. Defense played great, but Tom Brady brought some leadership skills. He's got such fire and passion. I think Steve Young, I heard mention before the game yesterday that he had some time to meet with Tom Brady and talk to him more than he ever has leading up into a game. And he mentioned one thing that he got from him. Nate Burleson, I believe, mentioned this pregame too. So two guys mentioned the same thing, is that Tom Brady told them that he believes he's had success in the NFL because he loves what he does. He loves what he does. And Zach, think about some of the people that we've talked to and brought on that work in the sports industry. They have a passion for what they do. So when you wake up every morning and you have a passion for what you do, it's hard, it's easy to really, really be able to push yourself to want to be great. And I think Tom Brady has that. He has it at a different level though too. And Justin, I know we've talked a little bit about some leadership books that we've currently read and finished reading. I just finished reading Julian Edelman's book, Relentless, and it was fantastic. In that book, Julian Edelman talks about in the off season, every single year, Tom Brady would go out to his ranch that he has in Montana, and he would take some of the receivers from the team and go out there for 2 weeks in the off season, and they would train and work out together and spend time at his ranch. Julian Edelman said that for those 2 weeks he's there, that everybody's there, every single minute of the day is planned out by Tom Brady. You know exactly what you're doing. When you walk in, he hands every single receiver an itinerary for the 2 weeks that they're going to be there. Julian Edelman also said when you go look for snacks or junk food in his house, you're not going to find it. It's just not there. So I think every single aspect of Tom Brady's life is devoted to being great and to being amazing at what he does. And I think that's why he's had a lot of the success. I read an interesting article the other day when I think it was him, Peyton Manning, and Charles Barkley, and I can't remember the other person that was in the golf outing that they did this past spring or summer for a benefit to help raise money for COVID. Charles Barkley was his partner, and he said that when they arrived 2 hours before they were supposed to start the golf tournament, the 18 holes, he sees Tom Brady in pouring rain in the parking lot doing exercises, stretches, and running sprints. And he said, "What the hell are you doing?" Tom Brady looked at him and said, "I want to win another Super Bowl." So, I mean, the man is special. He's the best leader we've ever seen and witnessed in all of sports, in my opinion. He's right up there with Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant of the world, but he's number one, in my opinion. Not the best athlete in the world, but just a lot of respect for him and what he does in his everyday life. Long-winded, but again, very, very passionate about what he does. If we looked at people in their career and whatever they did, if they were passionate about it and they devoted themselves to wanting to be great, it would be amazing. We live in a great world.
That's well said, Al. And I mean, there's so many things about Brady. His career is so unique and it's so special, and it's so neat that we get to live and we get to see it unfold. I was looking up some numbers. Let me ask you guys this without looking. How many touchdowns do you think he threw this year?
This year? Is that including the playoffs?
Just regular season touchdowns.
Regular season, I'm going to say 38.
Zach, what
I'm going to 34.
Threw 40 touchdowns. That was second in the league, only to Aaron Rodgers. That's only been done 16 other times in the history of the NFL. So even at 43 years old, the guy is putting up, he's still touching the record books, which is, I mean, aside from Al, everything you said, and I'll get into in a second, but this isn't like Trent Dilfer leading the Bucs to the Super Bowl, carried by Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks' defense. I mean, the guy is still playing at an elite level, and it was an amazing season, a great run. I was so happy for him. One thing that really sticks out to me he's the greatest football player of all time. That's undisputable at this point. I think we've established that, Al, right? But you compare him to guys in other sports, and when you think about guys like, I always think about Kobe. I love Kobe, huge fan, and you hear about all the hours he puts in the gym and how he gets up extra early and all this stuff. And what's interesting, like basketball is that's an individual sport. Like you can point to Kobe Bryant and you can say like, man, he's 1 of 5 on the court. He made a difference. He's 1 of 15 in the locker room. He's leading that group. But the NFL is different. The NFL is like the quintessential team sport. Quarterback, while is the most important position, is still 1 of 53 So to be able to do what he's done now in 3 decades, to lead a team 7 different times to a Super Bowl, I think there's just something that sets him apart and something that's different, than even Kobe and Jordan and those guys, because he's leading a whole entire locker room. And just the last point really quick is that I had this professor, leadership, Al, we talk about that, and Dr. Barbara Mallory is her name, and she preached this concept, DAC, direction, alignment, commitment. And the context more is like in an organization. If you want change in an organization, you have to have direction. You got to have a vision. You got to know what you want. You got to have alignment. So everybody in the organization needs to understand their role and understand how they contribute to the direction. And then you have to have commitment. You got to have buy-in. And when you have those 3 things, then your organization takes off. And I think Brady embodies those. I think just him, and he embodies that. Like, Al, to your story about him, stretching in the parking lot before the Pro-Am, everything, to not having snacks or junk food in his house. I mean, everything about him is aligned and is focused on winning the Super Bowl. And he is, 100% committed to that. And again, we saw what happened. So shout out to Tom Brady. What a great game. And, we heard him too. He'll be back next year. So that's exciting.
Zach, what are your thoughts on it a little bit there? Zach, I know you think he's going to play till he's 50, which wouldn't surprise me at this point now.
Honestly, I mean, I think, Justin said he threw 40 touchdown passes. He's still touching the record books, and he's still not getting hit. I mean, he's still staying upright. And I think if that continues, he's going to continue to play. And you guys nailed it. And I love that direction, alignment, commitment. I think that is who Tom Brady is. When he joins a team, he provides a vision. He aligns everybody up, and he makes sure that everyone's committed. And he brings those with him who are going to follow that. And I think he convinces even those like Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski to join him, and they align together. So I think Tom Brady does some fantastic things, and I don't think anyone prepares like him. I think that's key to being successful in anything. But he is freakishly just prepared. He doesn't, I believe that he doesn't have junk food in his kitchen. I believe that he's, doing crunches and push-ups in a parking lot in the pouring down rain before a Pro-Am because he wants to win the Super Bowl. I mean, the guy is just committed to the point of just craziness, if you will. I don't think anyone has that dedication that he has. And I think it's grit. We've talked about it a few times. He has grit. He'll get dirty. He'll get in your face. He'll shake his finger in your face mask. We saw it during the Super Bowl, and you don't want to tick him off. He has that fight, that fierceness of a true competitor, and that only gets him going a little bit more. So I think bottom line, the guy worked harder, continues to work harder than anyone in any professional sport. He prepares like no one else, and I think what works for him is going to continue to work for a couple more years.
Yeah, I think both of you guys nailed it. And, I keep touching on the fact that it still blows my mind that some people are still questioning him. I mean, what more does the man have to prove? He's been to the Super Bowl more than 50% of the time that he's been in the NFL. That's ridiculous. It's unheard of. Doesn't exist. He's been there 10 times. He's 7-3. Again, and you mentioned it in the question there. We're talking about a guy who didn't even start until halfway through his senior season at the University of Michigan. Those things have all, I think, weighed heavily on him, and he wants to prove people wrong. I remember reading something really quick here when Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots were trying to figure out if they were going to draft him late in the draft there. They called Coach Lloyd Carr, and they asked Lloyd Carr what he thought about Tom Brady. And And he told the New England Patriots that if you draft Tom Brady, it will be the best decision you ever made. So, so Lloyd Carr, I'm sure, saw that passion and that preparation. Zach, you talked about preparation. It's relentless. I mean, he prepares more than anybody. And I've heard a couple things about looking at some different articles and stuff that we're talking about Kansas City not being fully healthy in the offensive line, not being all intact for the Super Bowl, which I get. But, I mean, they won by 22 points, okay? So wasn't even close. And look out for Tom Brady next year and probably for the next 7 to 8 years. So let's be real.
Al, to your point, I mean, the Kansas City offensive line was atrocious. But the Tampa Bay defense played lights out, and you have to think that Tom Brady made them better. Practicing with Tom Brady on the other side of the field all season long prepares you for that big moment. And I think he had something to do with it, and you can't deny that he didn't. So, to discount what he did this year, I know there's naysayers out there saying that the offensive line was terrible and, if rules were reversed, whatever it was, but it wasn't. The rules weren't reversed. Tom Brady got him there. That defense played lights out, and I have to think that he had something to do with it.
I would 100% agree with you on that, Zach. He definitely had a lot to do with that. The coaching, fantastic. But Tom Brady being a part of that football team and on that field where everybody knows his background, they had confidence in him and they want to play for him. They see that passion that he brings to the practice field. First one there, last one to leave. They see everything he does. They do not want to disappoint him. Do you think anybody wants to show up late to practice when Tom Brady's going to chew you out? No. So they definitely, I agree with you, Zach. They had a great run. The defense played fantastic the entire postseason. Some of that definitely had to do with the leadership that Tom Brady brought to that team.
Agreed. And just a shout out to Bruce Arians and his coaching squad. 2 women coaches on his squad, I believe. 2 women on his coaching staff. Minorities, kudos to him, showing that you can put together a great coaching staff as well. So kudos to him. Big Bruce Arians fan, being a Steeler fan myself.
Awesome. And one last thing, I'm going to make it very clear to everybody watching us tonight. If you still think Tom Brady is not the greatest of all time, you're not living on planet Earth. All right. Well, that wraps it up for tonight. Thank everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and watching. Justin, thank you again for supporting what we do and all the feedback that you provide. And thanks so much for being a special guest on with us tonight. We hope to see you soon.